Okay, hopefully everyone here can hear me. I am going to begin this stream very shortly. Basically, what's happening right now is that I'm sitting in the Google Meet waiting room waiting for Faye. As you can see, she's already arrived. What we're going to be doing today is that I'm going to be talking to her and doing a fake interview. This is designed to imitate a first interview situation. So I am going to enter the chat, and basically from the moment we connect to this meeting, I'm going to pretend to be the recruiter who is giving her the first call to assess her suitability for the job, right? This is not a technical interview. This is an interview, to be quite honest, this is normally where the recruiter is trying to work out if you're someone who can interact with people normally, who can explain themselves well, who seems like they know what they're talking about. So it's basically an opportunity here for Faye to sell herself in this situation as someone I should be paying attention to. So that's what we're going to try to achieve today. At the end of about 15 minutes, I will stop the interview and I will talk to Faye about what I thought she did well and what I think needs improvement. So we are going to start this really soon. This is my first time recording Google Meet directly this way. I'm also going to turn captions on because I forgot when I talked to Francesco last week, and I know that can really suck. So hopefully this will work. Let's try it. There is a chance that my audio doesn't work. So let's have a go. Hopefully this all seems good. Yup. Okay, let's just test this. I'm just testing my audio and video. The problem that we might have is that... oh, here we go. Okay, let's just test this. I'm just testing my audio and video. Okay, I was going to say the problem we might have is that... that this stream is recording my audio and I want my audio to work in the meeting, but it seems like that's working. So let's connect and see what Faye has to say about her work. Hello, Faye, are you there?
Hi, Anna.
Oh, hello. Just give me 1 second. I'm just setting up some bits and bobs, but I think we should be ready to go in just a moment. Okay. All right. It looks like we are good to go. So Faye, thank you so much for agreeing to this time. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
Oh, very well. Thank you. So you've applied for this developer advocate position. You may or may not know me. My name is Heather Longbottom, and I am actually working on behalf of the client who will be hiring for this position. So I'm not a tech person myself. This is just a get to know you kind of interview, but I hope that we will be able to talk a bit about who you are and what you're looking for and see if it aligns with my client's needs. So let's begin. Actually, wait 1 second because I need to just check that our sound is working here before we get stuck in. This is classic problems in the time of Corona. We're all adjusting to technical difficulties. Okay, apparently we are up and running, so that is fine. So firstly, Faye, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, the pandemic has kind of affected everyone in different ways. And at the beginning to middle of last year, my role in my previous position was made redundant, and I was sort of thrown into the world of sort of, as everyone was, like, what now? What do we do? So I decided to teach myself to code. I'd never studied it or sort of done any coding or anything like that before. So it was completely new. I mean, I had taught myself some VBA, like Visual Basics, in my last job, but it was just completely, it was very focused on one thing. I just wanted to do one thing with it, and so I taught myself how to do that, and that was kind of it. So yeah, I started to teach myself to code using Udemy and YouTube and Free Code Camp, learning JavaScript and CSS and frameworks and things. And I started my Twitter account at the same time. I hadn't really used Twitter before, to be honest, not properly. And I was sharing, information as I went along, sharing what I was learning and all of the fun and not so fun things that I was doing. And it just kind of took off from there. And now I write a lot of articles. I write blogs and things about what I'm doing, about the new things that I'm learning. I have gone from JavaScript to, well, yeah, I'm still obviously still doing JavaScript. Don't think you can ever stop learning that.
I wouldn't know. I don't know anything about coding, so.
I am now learning. I've started to learn React, which is a framework to help you work with JavaScript and sort of to build websites.
Okay, I see.
Build applications.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also used Vue, which is pretty much the same thing as React, just a few different things, which also sort of helps you to build websites. I've been helping out with a company called WeStrive. We've been sort of helping each other. I've been doing a few things for them, writing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I saw that was an internship position that you had. It was on your CV, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been helping with sort of design decisions and discussions, reaching out to the community, talking to, explaining what WeStrive is and what we're doing, and taking feedback and working that into discussions with the team.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier that you were made redundant from your last position. What was that position?
So I was an executive assistant in a fintech company. It was, kind of technically a startup. So I like small companies, but I have also worked with large multinational transport companies. I've done a lot of different things.
Well, as you know, my client is a medium-sized company. They have about 100 employees. Is that something that you would be comfortable with?
Yeah, like I said, I've worked with huge international sort of corporations and tiny startups, sort of like 1 or 2 people. And also I've worked in schools, which is however many people. It could be a couple hundreds, or it could be 5, or yeah.
Now, you mentioned you were an executive assistant. That's quite a change going from that into coding. What was kind of the reasoning for that? What was the push for that one?
Well, apart from the role getting made redundant, I think, and what led me actually from education, special needs education, into working in fintech was because I've always had this very I don't, in the education anyway, I didn't get on with the we do it, why, if I said to someone, why do you do it like this, they would say, well, because we've always done it like this. And that drove me a little bit mad. I did it for years, but and I just had to get out. And I think working in fintech, that was really fun. It's surrounded by people with like a gazillion degrees, and they're all building their own businesses and everything, and you're very much constantly learning. And then I suppose I know that coding is something that you just need to be constantly learning. You can learn and teach and never ever be done. There's always something you need to learn, and I think that's why I was kind of drawn to that.
Okay, and so what you've obviously been focusing a lot on the technical side for quite a while now, and this is a developer advocate position. This is not a coding position. So do you feel comfortable with that, or are you more passionate about the technical side, or why did you feel that you needed to apply for this role?
So I yeah, like I mentioned, I write blogs, articles. I get thousands of views on my articles, and people, the feedback that I love the most is when people say, well, I finally understand it now. Whatever it is, whether it's a minor concept or this technology that is complicated and tricky, and people don't, people want to understand it, but they haven't quite figured out how. And I think I've got that. I've been told sort of throughout my various careers that I've got the ability to explain difficult things in an easy way, whether that's to, I think it's from working when I was working with special needs children, if it's a child that is just sitting on the floor and can't speak, and, a number of disabilities that they might have, you have to find different ways to explain and try and get through to them what you want them to do, whether you want them to put their shoes back on or whether you want them to stop threatening you with a chair. It's
right.
just kind of finding different ways to explain things to people, and I think that's what I'm quite good at, verbally and written down.
Okay, so if you had to, I guess, tell me what your biggest strengths are, what would you say those are?
Communication and writing. I enjoy writing, and yeah, I think written communication is probably one of my biggest strengths. I think that patience.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I'm very patient, and a desire to learn new things.
Right. Great. And so I suppose that brings the natural next question, which is, what do you feel is one of your weaknesses?
I know that sometimes my desire to learn new things means that I rush and I skip many things, which I am aware of, and so I've started writing everything down now. So everything that I learn, I write it down. I've got a little notebook and a nice little pen next to me all the time, and yeah, I write things down as I go, because then I can look back and think, oh, hang on, I've missed something here, and so then I can go back over whatever it is that I've missed.
Okay, and this is a developer advocate position, as we discussed earlier. Now, if you're looking 5 years in the future, we won't go as far as 10 years, but let's say the next 3 to 5 years, would you be hoping to stay in that sort of position, or are you looking to later take on more of a leadership role, or what is your thinking on that regard?
Feels like a long time. Yeah, I think I would be looking to sort of get into a leadership role. I've always worked with people. I think that, like I said, communication and working with people, I think, is one of my main strengths. And that would be something that I'd want to build on and work towards.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll take your information back to my client, and we'll see if they will get back to you for the next stage.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And hello.
Hi.
It's Anna. Woo!
Hi.
I'm someone else.
My wife keeps asking me if I'm running. My heart is
That's very funny. That's a new one. Also, hello to everyone watching. If you've just joined us, you just saw the end of our mock little job interview, where I was asking Faye some of the typical questions that you get in a first get to know you interview. I'm so sorry for terrifying you, Faye, and for making your heart race like that. But as I was saying to Faye the other in a message earlier, the whole idea by doing it live on YouTube is that it gets her nerves up in the same way that a real job interview would. So we see a more accurate representation of how she would respond to what is a stressful situation for anyone. So thank you, firstly, Faye, for agreeing to do this and for being such a good sport. Okay, firstly, before we start looking at what I think, let's talk about what you think. What do you feel went well first of all? What do you feel like you did a good job with?
I think, I don't know.
No, we're back into job interview mode. Are we? Like, what is your strength?
Stop asking me questions.
All right. Well, okay. Would you prefer that I speak for a little bit so you have a chance to chill? Okay. All right. Okay. Let's do it that way, and then we'll come back to what you thought. Okay. So the first thing is that I asked some of the most typical questions that are going to come out. The first one is tell us about yourself. Right. That is almost always the first thing they say, or why are you here today, or something along those lines. The second thing was the strengths and weaknesses, the one everyone hates. And the third one was where you see yourself in 5 years. These are the kind of typical...
Honestly, I've never been asked that question before.
Really? Oh, gosh, you're lucky. You're lucky. Well, now you know. It could come. Yeah. It could come. I mean, I feel like in tech, often things move a bit quicker and people don't ask the question as much. But what were you going to say?
I was just I've done a few sort of interviews. Only a few since this whole thing. So I've only done a few like video interviews. Yeah. And I don't know. I find they're really chilled. Like I've had really informal interviews. I think I've been lucky. And it hasn't been like questions like that. It's just been more
good. Okay. So, well, that's good. I mean, the struggle, of course, we have in this situation is that there is no real job that you're applying for. So I can't really give you much in this case.
Do you know, I've been doing this React course all morning, and I was like, I'm going to talk about React, and then you were like, you applied to a developer advocate job, and I was like, oh, I did, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. In this case, it's not really relevant because there is no real job that you've applied for, but definitely it is important to know exactly what job you're talking about at the start. But in this case, I'll let you off the hook for that one. In my almighty role.
I see what you did there. You let me off the hook.
I know. All right. So
tell me, what can I?
Okay, so let's start with something that I think needs a lot of work. The big thing, I think, if you were only to focus on one thing after this, it's to get a coherent story about yourself. Yeah. So for that opening question, I mean, everyone's talking about the pandemic, but the last thing someone wants to talk about as the first opening sentence of tell us about yourself is, well, the pandemic hit. And it was like, oh God, what a downer. So I would definitely recommend for the story, I have a video on this, but I'll kind of sum it up here as well, to really come up with 3 to 4 dot points that you feel kind of summarize how you've gone from wherever you started to this job. Like basically what you want to do is you want to craft a story that shows that it's absolutely natural and only makes sense that you would be here for this job right now, you know. And I think for you, the strongest way to do that, and you touched on it, but I think this should be the core of your story, is that you came from you worked with education and you worked in fintech, and you saw these two areas that are like of interest for you essentially, and that you were able to then combine those into pursuing technology yourself and then using your educational abilities to help others to then learn that. You know, I don't know your story as well as you do, but that would kind of be...
I don't think I know it very well.
That could be a problem.
People ask me like, well, why are you in tech? And I'm like,
yeah, you definitely need an answer to that question. Yeah. And I would go with, obviously I can't answer for you. It's obviously something you have to think about yourself. But the fact that you worked for a fintech startup, that's actually a really strong point to start with. You could say like, oh, I've seen technology in action and I want to be part of it. You know, even something like that, even just a 1-sentence thing like that can be very strong. And then the fact that you want to go into developer advocacy and that you have this background in education, that was something that I thought you did really, really well, which was explain how your skills from education would translate into this kind of position. That was actually by far the strongest thing you gave me, was that explanation, like how you're writing your blogs and your online presence, and how you feel like that means that you have this special ability no one else has, right? Because if you think of this from a recruiter's perspective, they're looking for the perfect candidate, right? And if they can find someone who is like, yeah, I already am a developer advocate for the technologies that I learn. You said at one point, you said, oh, I get thousands of views on my blog, every month or whatever it was. I would get the statistics. Like go on, if you know the stats, or if you can find the stats on the site you write on, actually say like, oh, last month I had 100,000 views, or whatever it is, 10,000. I don't know, gosh, however many you had, but like throw a number out there, say tens of thousands, whatever it is, or, and say, like, give them a number, because that's something that makes a recruiter go, oh, it's a fact. So, just going back a little bit. So the first thing we're talking about is the story. Yeah. How you went from A to B to this position, and it has to flow logically, like there is no other position that could possibly make sense.
Yeah.
It has to be this one. Like, it makes perfect sense that you would come to this conclusion, given your experiences. That's the feeling we want to have. There was the other thing I really liked that you did was your answer about weakness, like what your weakness was. So for those who might just be joining us, she said her weakness is that in her rush to learn new things, she often skips over steps, but it's something she's conscious of, and she's trying to make sure to slow down and take her time on some things. And I thought that was really, really, really strong, because it showed, because you had listed one of your strengths as being your eagerness to learn. And it's natural that if you're super eager to learn, that sometimes that does mean that you skip some foundational things, right? It's natural that you would then say that was one of your weaknesses, but the fact that you acknowledged that and you said, okay, I'm aware of that, and I try to force myself to slow down and take things step by step, and then you linked that back again then to writing and said, writing the blogs and teaching others helps me to slow down and to learn things thoroughly. So it was kind of like the perfect package of an answer, because you said, this is my weakness. You weren't shy about it. You said, this is my weakness. This is what I do to get better at that weakness. And oh, look, that happens to be a skill you need for this position. like what a coincidence. So that was something that I thought was super strong, and I would say definitely try to structure things like that. Your strengths were also strong. I liked that they were short. You mentioned when you first asked me to do this with your, or offered yourself up for sacrifice. You said that you have a tendency to ramble. I think it was, and that is what happened with the story section. You kind of jumped times a bit, like you started in the middle of the pandemic, and then you kind of talked a lot about tech, and then we jumped backwards. I think it's because I'd forgotten what we said about what job I'd applied for. So I was like, I'm just going to talk about everything, and I'll hit it somewhere. That's fair enough. Yeah, that's probably natural when this is a fake job interview in a way. But certainly that is something I would have prepared, is like I said, 3 to 4 dot points that kind of seem to go, that start at the beginning of time. So not the beginning of time. So there was a big bang. There was a big bang and the world was created. No, but that starts at the beginning of your relevant career history, I would say. And then goes from there. And then what was the other thing I said? Education into advocacy, getting statistics. Yeah. So that would be the other big thing, is actually just having a few, what I call prepared talking points. So if you imagine like politicians, when they do media training, before they go onto TV or whatever, they have media advisors, and the media advisors say to them, okay, we need you to talk about, I don't know, school enrollment numbers, crime rates, and this is the line you're going to use. Crime has come down by 19%, and that's a direct result of our policies. They said, we want you to say that line. And then they will come onto that show, and if you actually watch a raw recording of those interviews, the politician will say that thing 3 or 4 times. They don't actually just say it once because they know that maybe only one of them will actually make it to the primetime news. Now, you have to think about it that way as well. What you need are 3 to 4 points, and I would suggest that the numbers on your blog be one of them, or potentially also your number of followers on Twitter, keeping in mind that your average person does not have more than 100. That's also quite impressive to people sometimes. I would go in with 3 to 4 kind of points you really want to get across. Maybe like eagerness to learn, the fact that being an educator makes you a good advocate, the numbers on your blog, and maybe something about your personality, like leadership or communication or something along those lines.
The dev advocate interviews, normally I talk about I say normally, like I just, there's these things that you forget, isn't there? But yeah, normally when I remember from the start what job I've applied for, I talk about when I was working in fintech, I led a marketing campaign. It's on my CV actually, that increased engagement by 45%, and that normally goes down quite well.
Exactly.
Because that's quite a big number.
Exactly, that's perfect. So so that kind of thing, you need like, I would say, 3 or 4 of this. So you've got 3 to 4 dot points for your story, right? You've got 3 or 4 dot points, which are other pieces of information you have to force into conversation, right? And the trick is finding opportunities, and you need to be looking, every time they ask a question, you need to be looking for opportunities to drop those things in. And I would say, if it sounds like you already kind of know what those things would be, because I'm saying this stuff and I'm seeing you nodding and going, I can think of that, and I've got that 45% number, and this kind of stuff. But you have to assume that, because I tried to be really realistic about this. When I looked at your CV, I kind of scanned through it, kind of got an idea of the timeline, and then came back to you. You have to assume that they have not read every dot point on your resume. If you're lucky, they have, and hopefully they have, but sometimes they don't. So you need to also feed that information to them in a way, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think like the great thing is that after you got over those initial nerves, the answers kind of shortened themselves, and it seemed to get be a bit more to the point. But I would say preparing those dot points in advance and just memorizing them and practicing them in front of a mirror over and over and over again until you feel like you're going to throw up if you say those words one more time. Like, I'm serious. Like, it just means that when you're panicking, and this is something I can talk about from my stage experience, you have to prepare to the point where you cannot say the wrong thing. Like, you literally cannot, because it's so ingrained in your muscle memory that no matter how stressed you are, the words are going to come out. Right. So that's why it sucks. But honestly, it doesn't take that long. Like once you are happy with your 3 to 4 dot points, you just do like 15 minutes in front of a mirror, just saying those 3 or 4 things together. Because it should only take a minute in the end. Those 3 to 4 dot points will take a minute to a minute and a half to say. You do that for 15 minutes and you won't forget them.
A load of times.
So it sounds hard, but it doesn't take that long. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a good idea. I should do that. I normally write down a few things. Actually, I did write down a few things, but then I came on and I was like, Anna! No, it's not. Wait, no, it's not Anna. It's not Anna. Focus.
I can't even remember what name I ended up giving you either. Beatrice Longbottom or something.
Longbottom.
It was definitely Longbottom. Okay, great. Well, is there anything, I suppose, before we leave it there, because that's almost our half hour, is there anything specific that you feel we haven't touched on that you would want to work on or improve?
Did I ramble? At the beginning I did.
At the beginning you did, yes. But after that point, but again, I just think that's because one, you weren't sure what job it was at first.
Talk about everything.
But secondly, because I don't think you were just prepared with those dot points and thinking about it in terms of that way of thinking. But you have to think of it like if, you know, when you watch like those true crime series or whatever, or like the, you know, Diaries of a Serial Killer or whatever it is, you know, I don't know if that's a thing, but if it isn't, someone should write it. That, you know, they tell you, oh, when they were a child, they used to pull the wings off flies, and you're like, oh, they should have known they'd be a serial killer. You know what I mean? It seems so obvious when you look back that they would have ended up at that point. That's essentially what we want to create here. You know?
What you're saying is that I should be a serial killer?
Yes. No.
Building up to it like in a logical kind of way.
Exactly. That that even if you couldn't see at the time that you should have been doing something else, that now it's so obvious that, you know, you should be doing this job. Actually, on that note, there was one other thing I forgot to mention, which was when you spoke about being in education before. I would try not to get too negative, because it kind of sounded like you're kind of like, oh, and everyone wanted to do things the same way, and I just had to get out. I think that's how you said it. You said, I had to get out. Which look, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying, like, maybe try to phrase it more like, I found that I needed to try new things and expand my horizons, and I couldn't get that in that position. I couldn't get that in that job. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or people had a different attitude, and in the end, like, I need somewhere where I can grow, or I need somewhere where I can keep learning and we can keep challenging ourselves, you know, rather than saying they didn't challenge themselves, they were crap at, you know, thinking beyond whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same information, but you phrase it in terms of a positive of what you need and what you're looking for, rather than how they were a bit crap, you know? Yeah.
No, it's true. It's because it's like a known problem in education. So I'm used to saying that in education, but now I suppose, like, out of it kind of sounds bad. But everyone in education knows it's a problem.
Right. Well, I would just, I know it to one extent you want to be honest and you want to, like, talk about what wasn't working for you, but I just think it's always better if you can phrase that in a positive sense of what you are looking for, what you do want, and that way people come away being like, oh, she's someone who loves to learn, really wants to challenge herself, she wasn't getting that before, she has these skills from education in teaching other people, and she has this experience in tech and in marketing, and now, like, she wants to combine all of these things together and teach tech to other people. Like, that's amazing. That makes so much sense. You know, she wants to challenge herself and be part of this new thing or whatever it is, you know, like that's how you kind of build this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Volcano of Glory.
Okay, cool. We'll go with that. That is what I am now. That is what I am.
You're a volcano of glory.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, Faye, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I really hope that this has been helpful for you.
Yeah, it has. It really has. Thank you so much.
No problems at all. And yeah, I will see you on Twitter, like, every day, as always.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon when you're not pretending to be as scary.
Yes, I'm not always scary. I'll try to be much nicer.
All right. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.